You know, your kids always tend to ask, "What's next, mommy? What's going to happen next?" And when they have that uncertainty of housing, it's kind of like detrimental to you because those are your children and you don't want to see them cry. You don't want to see them sad. You don't want to see them without.
That's Sharell Matthis. She said those words while working, while homeless, and while trying to hold her family together with no safety net. I'm Esther Dillard. This is part 3 of Unhoused and Unheard, the Black Experience of Homelessness. And this is Sharell's story. Sharell Matthis didn't fit anyone's picture of who becomes homeless. She had a home, a husband, a family, and then life shifted and everything fell apart at once.
Homelessness for me was happening in a lot of consecutive ways, if that makes sense. So, what I'll break it down is that my initial first time of ever being homeless, I was 19. That was my first time ever being homeless. Um, I experienced the shelters, the whole in house shelter rules, and things of that nature. Fast forward to me being older, going into homelessness. Um, I had the family dynamics, which was me, my estranged husband, our children. I am a mother of 7. Um, and dealing with mental health and his medical condition led us to homelessness, drug addiction. These things played a part in me and the children becoming homeless.
Her story is not the exception. According to the latest federal data, families with children are now the fastest growing group experiencing homelessness in America, up 39% in a single year.
When you we talk about that dramatic increase, the largest sector for that increase was families and children.
Donald Whitehead leads the National Coalition for the Homeless in Washington, D.C. He says for working mothers, the math almost never adds up.
So you're right to ask the question about, what happens when you have a family of 5 and you have to find daycare for that family. And now you have to work at the same time. And if you don't have advanced skills, most of what you earn is going to be taken up by the daycare. So it is a non-sustainable.
After Sharell's husband's addiction and mental health crisis pulled their family under, Sharell packed up her 7 children, crossed from Pennsylvania into Maryland, and started over with nothing.
When we came into Maryland, we ended up linking up with some people in the local area who provided us with churches and organizations that help women and children. At that time, I separated from their father, who ended up going through incarceration. So I was left alone to raise the children. They gave us resources to kind of help us get on our feet. And then we were introduced to transitional housing. At that point, we were able to get our own housing, but eventually transitioning to our own home. And that didn't work. I ended back up in homelessness again. Unfortunately, the services that were provided through that particular agency just weren't what should have been provided for me in a family my size. So I ended up in a hotel. Once I ended up in the hotel, things got a little rough because at that point you have to pay your hotel or you have to leave. And in between that time, there were times where we were sleeping in our vehicle, but it ended up being the hotel. So I ended up getting employment, still homeless, but working.
Through it all, Sharell held it together for her children, carrying all the weight that they couldn't see.
Your kids always tend to ask, "What's next, mommy? What's going to happen next?" And when they have that uncertainty of housing, it's kind of like detrimental to you because those are your children and you don't want to see them crying. You don't want to see them sad. You don't want to see them without. And that also causes like PTSD. So even once you are settled, it's like your children still have that anxiety of, is this going to change?
Hi, if you're enjoying this content, I'd like to ask you to do me a favor. Please support my work by hitting the subscribe button. If you've already subscribed, like and share with other people. It is free, and it also helps YouTube to recognize that this is the kind of content that needs to be shared with other people. So it really helps. Thanks so much. Now let's get back to the story. During COVID, Sharell Matthis says she reached a turning point, and for the first time, housing support that actually fit the size of her family.
So me and my family could still be together, but in a hotel atmosphere. They provided us with breakfast and you know, giving us like mental health things to help us get through. And from that point on, I journeyed into permanent supported housing, and that's currently what I'm going through now.
What was that like? What was that feeling like when that offer was made?
I was ecstatic. I mean, we cried, we were very happy, and my case manager at the time happens to be my same case manager now, so he's kind of seen my journey from the beginning to now. And I remember him coming to me. He said, I have the perfect spot for you. And I mean, you hear this a lot going through homelessness. Oh, we're going to help you get out, we're going to make sure that you have this. So you're never too sure if people are just basically selling you a dream. So this was actual facts. And, as we're doing the paperwork, I just remember crying, being extremely excited. And then I just remember the days he handed me my keys, and it was just like a relief. Like we finally made it.
Sharell found a way through, but the program that saved her family may not have the resources for the next mother who needs it.
And then it doesn't help any with the fact that, things are shifting. And a lot of the agencies that provide services for a woman, such as myself with children, funding is being threatened to be cut. These type of things are a little scary.
Donald Whitehead says those fears were well founded. Proposed cuts could push tens of thousands of families back to the very crisis they just escaped.
In addition to that, they are trying to push through, although this was not in either the House or the Senate budget, they're trying to push through term limits on housing as well. So people would only be able to receive 2 years of funding for their housing. So that would not only affect those that are homeless, it will affect those that are housed. So it will dramatically increase, somewhere in the neighborhood of people. One of the estimates I've seen is about 2.7 million more people would be placed into homelessness if that happened.
According to the HUD 2024 Annual Homeless Assessment Report, Black Americans make up 12% of the U.S. population, but account for nearly 32% of everyone experiencing homelessness. Sharell knows that number. She lived it.
I see a huge disconnect in homelessness. And I think sometimes it comes from the whole stereotype of homelessness being from people who are lazy or people who just need to get up and get a job and, things of that nature. But that's not always the case. Like I said, in my situation, I had the family dynamics. I had the dad, the mom, the children, the beautiful home. I never woke up expecting that my life would change the way that it did. But again, everyone's different. Like I said, my stranger, he had mental health issues. He had things going on. When that's the sole provider and things go left, it's kind of like, where do I go from here?
And to the women who may be exactly where she was, exhausted, scared, and not sure where tomorrow leads, she had this to say.
To keep your head up, to know that tomorrow is a new day, and their troubles don't last always. They will be okay. They will get through it. Don't give up. Just keep pressing. Just keep knowing that tomorrow's a new day. I mean, I did this with 6 children. And when I say it's not easy, but it gets better, I mean literally what I'm saying. I'm not just saying that. It does get better.
And Whitehead says the power to change this starts closer to home than most people think.
So we need to change the narrative about that. We need to change the narrative that started with the welfare queen and now includes the homeless mom. We need to make sure we combat that. And we can do that a few ways. We can do that by exercising our right to vote, but we also can utilize our spheres of influence. So we all have spheres of influences. Sometimes they're small. They're me and my family at the kitchen table. But most of us belong to some group. It may be a civic organization, a lodge, or it may be a congregation. And then the ultimate is to run for office yourself. so that you can express the ideas that you may have, the need for compassionate support for people in your community, and you can also make a change.
Over the past 3 weeks, you met 3 Black Americans who fell through the cracks and fought their way back: Adora, Donald, and Sharell. Their stories are not the exception. They are the warning. If you want to be part of the solution, the National Coalition for the Homeless is a great place to start. Visit nationalhomelessness.org to donate, to advocate, or to find resources in your community. Thanks for listening to Unhoused and Unheard, the Black Experience of Homelessness on The Color Between the Lines. I'm Esther Dillard.